Raise it up. Raise it up. Chat Pro.
What's up, everybody? Alec Torelli here from Conscious Poker. Pumped to be back today. Thank you guys for your support from the past session. We did it last night, booked a win. So grateful for everyone's support, especially the people that bought a piece of me on Stake Kings. You guys are amazing. Really happy. Selling 10% of myself again tonight, and we sold out already. In future videos, fuck, I'm so used to YouTube. In future streams, I'll be selling my action at no markup, just consciouspoker.com. My subscribers get first dibs, so head over there, subscribe, it's totally free. Coming up after this, we got breakdowns from yours truly of key hands I played from the past 2 sessions. Both of those I booked wins, which was cool. And so we're gonna break down some of the key hands, walk you through the strategies, help you take your game to that next level with step-by-step process and thought process and breakdowns of how to make decisions in real time from those hands. So stay tuned for that. After that, of course, we got the stream tonight, 5,500. Mariano, we got Matisau, we got the usual suspects, yours truly in the house, and it's gonna be an awesome stream. Super pumped, and more pumped than ever because you guys have a sweat of me in the game. So that makes me really motivated to play my best. So we're gonna dive into your questions now on the Hustler, and be sure to drop those in the chat. And I'm excited to interact with you guys. Always appreciate you coming out. Your support, your positivity means a lot. Come say hi on social media at Alec Torelli. I'm on Twitter and Instagram every day. Stories about the poker life, tweets about actionable poker content, my journey, shit's going on, whatever. Come say hi. I'm super friendly, always on social. Say hi to everyone. My DMs are open too, so come say hi. That's it, man. You want to roll this? Let's do it. Go. All right, guys, what's up? Yeah, let's go, let's rock. Yeah, I got this question a lot about the stack sizes, the buy-ins. And there's a lot to it. Like, basically, if you look at all the hands I played, so the question was like, why not buy in deeper and just like buy in 100K, cover everyone? If you look at the hands I played, a lot of the spots, like, I don't know if you guys watched the past, 3 streams, but pretty much every all-in, and we're gonna cover this later today, my all-in against Vertucci, my all-in yesterday against Henry, when I had kings, he had 6s. Basically, he opens, I 3-bet, he piles it in, with 6s, right? So, even that, let's just take that one hand, right? Oh, and there was another hand, too, with Dahl, where he folded queens pre. But if you look at the hands that I won, a lot of the action is because I have not a lot, and people play hands they wouldn't have played that way if I were deeper. So, the example last night, I had kings, I doubled up, I won a 40K pot. Henry piles in with 6s, which I'm not saying it's a bad play, but he wouldn't have piled in 6s if I was 100K deep, right? He's just gonna flat call pre, he's gonna call my $2,200 3-bet, and then the flop goes, check, bet, fold, and I win, an additional 1,600, the additional size of my 3-bet over his raise, instead of winning 20K. So the same with the Vertucci hand, which we're gonna talk about later today. I piled in a spot in a 3-bet pot. I got called. If I had more chips, he would have folded. He almost folded because I was all in, even with the stack size that I had. And the other day on the show, Dahl opens, I 3-bet, Vertucci jams. And Dahl looks at my stack. He's like, oh, Alec has 50K, and I had doubled up in the session. I started with like 25 or 30 or whatever, and he folds queens. And if I had 20K, he would have piled in with queens. So like, it's not this like 1-for-1 where like every deeper stack you have is netting you a higher EV. So all these 3 hands, right? These are like the biggest hands I played. I won, these were all like 50K pots or 40K, 50K, 60K pots. All of them were because I had 200 big blinds, right? If I had 400 big blinds, 500 big blinds, my opponents would have folded and I would have not won any of that money. So it's not, and frankly, like there hasn't been many spots in this game where if I were deeper, I would have been able to outplay people or I would have won a bigger pot. So far, all of the action has been had because I was shorter. So in certain games, I think it's good to be a lot deeper, depending on how they play. In this game, I think actually, because everyone's deeper and people are splashing around, it's kind of good to be shorter because you can kind of like ninja snipe and then get it in. And then when you double, you're deeper. So like, I think at least half the session, I play with like 50K, which is like, 400, 500 big blinds, which is very deep. But it's not like 25K is a short buy. I mean, I still have 250 big blinds on 2551, so still plenty of room to like maneuver, make plays. You guys probably seen, if you guys watch all the stream, you see some of my moves around and stuff like that. So I think it's kind of that sweet spot stack where like it's small enough that people can just kind of like punt off to you, but it's not too small where you can't like call 3 bets or make 3 bets or call 4 bets or whatever. You still have that kind of in between sweet spot. I might adjust it. So far, this is like working really well. I really like kind of like where this is at. And then I think it just depends on the session, right? It depends on the players, and it depends on the positions, and it depends on like how the game actually plays. But that's a fair question, and yeah, so that's my strategy. But there's obviously more to it too, that because I'm playing with all the same players, I can't talk about everything. But like that's a high-level overview. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so the question was about how I knew Mike Mattisau, my relationship. We go way back, so I'm trying to think about like how we met. Like, did we meet in a poker game at the Bellagio when I was like in my young 20s or something, or like whatever? I know we were playing online like against each other quite a bit, and so we kind of just like made friends. But the point is that like somehow through the small niche of poker in Las Vegas where I was living, like we just made friends. And like we hung out a few times. Like I would go to his house and like we would hang out, and very cool guy. Like I liked spending time with Mike. And so yeah, we go like way back. This was like maybe I'm 35. This is my young 20s. Maybe like 21, 22, 23. So maybe this was like between 14 and 12, 10 years ago. Sort of like fell out of touch because like I wasn't started traveling and met my wife, moved to Macau. Like I just kind of was away from that scene, and just we kind of lost touch. Not in a bad way, but just like always made friends and whatever. But it's cool to see him involved in poker and staying around in poker and back in poker, and back on the stream, and like this will be fun. So it'll be fun to play with him, and it's been a while. I know my game's changed a lot. I'm sure his game's changed a lot too. I haven't talked strategy with him in a long time. We were. I know he played a very particular style back in the day, but poker was also very different back in the day. So it'd be cool to play with him today and like just see. I think it's a cool thing too, like when you see people that you haven't seen in a while. Like also Louise is on the show today. My roommate, Brazil God, yeah, like a friend of mine from college. We were literally in the same dorm together at SMU our freshman year of college. This was 15 years ago. So it's just cool to see, or actually longer, 18 years ago, because that was when I dropped out of school to become a pro. So anyway, it's just cool to see people, like, if you haven't seen them in a long time, and see where both of you have wound up and both of you have come, because it's like kind of these two windows in time where you can like look back on your life and say like, oh wow, like look at where we were then and look at where we are now. And that's just like it's kind of nostalgic. It's a very cool thing to do. So I'm excited to do that with Mike, excited to do that with Brazil God, and I'm obviously just excited to catch up with old friends. Like this is going to be a very fun, cool game. I also think today is like a little bit smaller. It's a little bit more action, a little bit more fun, a little bit less like, everyone trying to cutthroat win. Like, so I just think it's more like of a fun kind of environment. So it'll be a different sort of feel, and it'll be, it's always a fun time with Mike in the house. So I'm excited to play. So Jabril, for those of you who don't know, like he connected with me on Instagram, and he was following my journey on Hustler and like followed me for a while, and we connected, and we talked, and he's like, hey, like it'd be fun, we just started talking, and then next thing you know, he's like, oh, is there a way I could come? I'm thinking coming to LA, maybe I play on the show. Next thing you know, he's flying out, he has a seat. So I met Jabril for the first time yesterday, even though we connected through social media, and that's just like a really cool thing. Like I love interacting with other people. So yeah, my DMs are always open, come say hi. And yeah, crazy serendipitous thing where like next thing you know, him and I are playing on the show together. So it was fun to play with him. I really didn't know what to expect. So like, it's not like, we talked on social media, but it wasn't like him and I like talked for 2 hours about strategy. I didn't know how he played. He never talked to me about poker. He never talked to me about any hands. So I was like as in the dark as all of you about like how he was going to play. I had no idea what to expect. And so it was kind of confusing in certain spots. Like he played very unconventional, like didn't follow the book. And that's, could be a risk, but it also could be a challenge because you don't really know like where he's at, and so I think it's one of those things where if I rewatch the stream and I see a lot of the spots where I was curious about, I might have a better idea of like how he actually played and like what cards he had in these like kind of unconventional spots and lines he took. I didn't get a chance to watch the stream. I got home late last night. I had some stuff to do, and then obviously this morning I had to come back here for the show. And so I just didn't have a chance to see all the hands that he made those plays with. So that would, give me a lot clearer of a picture. There were definitely a lot of, am I on? Okay, cool. There were definitely a lot of unconventional spots. My worst play was against him yesterday that I'm just like, I don't know what I did. I just made a mistake in this spot against him, which was like so tilting. I could play like a session and like every hand will go well except one, and I'll just like be upset about that one hand. And I think that in a weird way is kind of what drives me and keeps me like improving and always trying to like reach that next level. But like I'm just unforgiving of myself. I guess I'm forgiving, but I'm like, it's just like I just get like, yeah, nothing really bothers me except unless I make a mistake. And I just like didn't bet this turn against him when I should have bet, and like I just knew he had what he had, and I just didn't bet against him, and I just was like really tilted. But anyway, that's not about Jabril. But he lost on the show. Frankly, like he had some moves in tough spots. The hand he lost with the set to Pepe, like, I mean, he didn't stack off with like one pair. I mean, he had a set, like, I don't know, most people would at least call the turn there. Maybe he could have called the turn and not jammed and then see what happens on the river. But like, you call the turn in that hand and the river's a blank and like, you're going to stack off anyway. So, I mean, he was in some tough spots. And that was basically like the net amount he lost was basically from that one hand. So I also think he did he was very comfortable. Like he was talking shit, which was funny. He was like bantering. He was like making jokes. He was like great to have on the stream. It was very fun. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And for your first time, I mean, on camera, like your first time in a televised game on the biggest game, in the country, like he was super comfortable and calm. And that's really impressive. I think people kind of underestimate like the lights, these huge fucking bright lights and the whole world watching and like your DMs blowing up, your social media blowing up, and like all that pressure coming in, to not let that get to your head in the moment in the game, I think is tough. And you guys have probably seen other people like just, blow up on the stream because of the stream. And so the game plays differently, but it felt like he had been there before. In fact, a friend of mine was watching and he was like, oh, I thought that guy was a reg, like on the stream, because he was like, his table presence was really good. So that's very impressive. That's very, like, it's not really talked about, but that's like, I guess because not that many people play on the stream and people don't talk about it, but that's like underestimated, and that's like very hard to do. Yeah, so I was impressed. Anyway. He's back tonight too, by the way, guys, so he'll be back tonight, and I actually kind of wish that I watched more of the stream last night, because there were certain spots I was kind of like wondering what he was doing, and like, if you don't see the cards, you don't know if it's like, you don't know what level he's on, you don't know what he's thinking, because you don't know what he has, right? So it's like, I wish I had more time to do that, but I didn't. What am I wearing? I'm wearing a sweater that's kind of like a jacket and a shirt all in one. It's super comfortable. My mom bought me a gift, and this is what I'm wearing. She bought me this yesterday. That's the truth. Yeah. I actually don't know what it is. No, I actually don't know. Yeah, so keep dropping questions in the chat. We'll pick the best ones. I think we got like 15 minutes more here. Then we have strategy coming up. We got hand analysis. You'll be with me for an hour. We're going to break down the key hands I played from the last 2 sessions. Confident you're going to have some interesting insights and takeaways to help you take your game to the next level. Be sure to stay tuned for that. And feel free to DM me afterwards at Alec Torelli on any social media and let me know your thoughts. Let me know how I can get, improve. Let me know if there's hands from these streams you want me to review in future upcoming streams. Let me know just on social media, just like shoot me a DM or whatever. And like, tell me if you have questions about hands I play too, you can ask me. I usually do an AMA after all these streams too. And like, hey, I just played on the stream. This was my result. What questions do you have? That's on Twitter, maybe on Instagram too. On my stories, so come ask any questions, and you can always like interact with me and stuff like that. I'm happy to like share thoughts and whatever too. So yeah, let's do the lineup. I actually don't even know everyone. Can you run me through the lineup? What do I know about Mariano? Yeah, I've played with him like twice. I haven't watched like as many of like the strategy breakdowns as I probably should, given that I'm playing with him. Obviously, knows what he's doing. Very solid, very good, capable player. Good at hand reading, like good at picking spots. Good at reading people too. Like not just like GTO bot kind of book player, but like kind of a like knows fundamentals, but also has some street poker in him where he'll like do something that he thinks is right in the moment, and he's right with a high degree. Like the times I've seen, the hands I've seen, he's right a lot. So very impressed with this play so far. Like I said, I've only played 2 sessions, so it's like it's a smaller sample, but you can tell that he's solid, knows what he's doing, got moves, and player to watch, no question. It's Shaun, dude, every time, I know Shaun will be the first to tell you this, like, Shaun just like, he just like loses, and like, he just is in these 6 spots, and it's like, yeah, I feel bad, like, in a way, because he just like, fuck, man. He did, and he had some redemption, but he was in like 80 or 100K, like 20K at a time, so it just like goes to show, like, the game is sick, and there's a lot of swings, and he's not like, blasting off with no pair, no draw at every spot. Like every time like he lost, like he had fucking aces against Henry, and he like trapped pre and like actually got this sick trap where someone flopped top pair and like got him to put in a lot of money, and then like they backdoor to flush, and then he just got stacked, and he had the ace of clubs too to like block the flushes, and just like, fuck, dude, like he's just been having it not go his way, and that's super tough. And he's kept his composure. He's like fun to be around. He's like, positive energy, laughs it off. Like still like, I haven't seen him like tilt. Like he doesn't blow up. It's not like he's lost the 80K and then when he bought in the last 20, he was just punting around. Like he still played solid, and like that's impressive. And so the way you know how someone plays is when they play when they're stuck 2 to 3 buy-ins and nothing is going their way. They're getting run over. They're losing. They're getting beaten down, and like every C-bet isn't working, every 3-bet isn't working, ace on the flop when they have kings. That's when you find out the quality of a player. Everyone can play well when they're winning. It's like when everything's going right in life, people are in a good mood, right? It's the same in poker. When you're flopping sets and stacking people, yeah, you're going to play well. You're going to be, whatever, I'll let this hand go. I don't care. I don't need to make this call here. And you just fold, or, you don't need to like get out of line. You don't need to do anything. He's played well when he's been losing. And that's like really impressive, because that's the measurement of a poker player. And not many people do that. And frankly, that's the delta between a lot of great players and average players, or good players, or sort of good players, is that, they'll play well 4 out of 5. And I've had clients that do this too. They play well 4 out of 5 sessions, and then they come to me and they're like, why am I losing? And it's like, well, this one session where you blew up and lost all the 4 wins that you won, and now you're wrecked. And so he hasn't done that, and that's been really impressive to me. And shit, I don't even want to see when he's running well, because then he's going to be playing, as well and also running well. So someone to watch out for sure. Definitely knows his moves. Oh, that's a great question. So the question is like, what's the biggest factor to decide whether to listen to intuition or not, right? And how to incorporate intuition into a game. So into intuition into your decision-making process. So it's like a subject that's very close to the heart, because I talk about this in some of the keynotes I've given to like even like business conferences and stuff, where it's like, people in other walks of life too, or outside of poker, are always left with this decision, like, in a relationship or something, do you trust your head or your heart? And that's kind of like a common sort of thing. And so people are faced with this sort of conundrum. So the way I look at it is like there's three types of decisions, right? There's logical decisions, there's intuitive decisions, and there's emotional decisions. So emotional decisions are really bad. Don't want to make any decisions from a place of emotion, because if you're emotionally charged, you're a lot more likely to let ego get involved or your biases get involved. And that's when you make suboptimal decisions. When you're at the poker table or you're outside the poker table, those are decisions you want to stay away from. So you want to have that that self-awareness, and you want to have that like approach to always trying to be a little bit better every day, to create that emotional mastery for yourself, so that you're not making decisions from that place. Because everyone plays from a place of, everyone is eventually in a situation where it's very difficult, especially in poker. You're going to be losing 2, 3, 4 buy-ins, whatever that is. You still have to make decisions. You have to have that emotional mastery, otherwise you're just fucked. So that's number one. Number two is like, okay, you're in a spot, and this is a common one people always ask about. You're in a spot, and basically the book says fold, right? You have like bottom pair, and you're supposed to fold, but you know the guy's bluffing. What do? Do you listen to logic, or do you listen to intuition, right? And so it's like, how do you kind of make this decision, and how do you think about this framework? So the way I like to say it is like, a lot of people are thinking that you have to choose between one and the other, and a lot of people think that these two forces are kind of diametric opposites, when in reality I think they kind of work together in a marriage to help you make better decisions. So I'll walk you through my process and how this works. So basically, the first thing that happens, right, whether at the poker table or away from the poker table, is you get an intuitive read, right? So let's say, in poker this happens often when, your opponent bets the river and you're like, I think he's bluffing. You don't know why he's bluffing. You have no idea. You haven't had time to like reason through the hand and go through the hand range funnel and think about, what does he have pre, what does he have on the flop, would he bet the turn this way, would he check the river, would he bet the river? You didn't do any of that. You just get a read, like, this guy's bluffing. Why? Because that's your fucking, all the experiences you've ever had in life, and all your ability of reading people, and you being at the table for thousands of hours over, a decade, telling you that like this situation is something that is not right. And so that's your human intuition that's very good, and has been evolved over like, millennia, and like, for like humans to be very good at having bullshit detectors, like, from a survival standpoint, that's very important to understand, like, hey, is this guy trying to give me poison, or are they really trading me for some commodity that's important? So just like evolutionarily, very important skill to have. And you do this all the time in your real life, right? Like, you meet someone for the first time, and you're like, I like that person. Why? You don't know. You just get a good vibe. Or maybe you get a bad vibe, and you're like, I don't like that person. I can't trust them. Something's wrong. Why? Is it the color of their shirt? No, you don't have time to like think about it logically. You just use your intuition to kind of like give yourself a read. So that's the first thing that happens. When you look at the decision-making process, your first thing is always intuitive. That's very important. So then what you do is you use your analytical, logical mind to then confirm or deny your intuition, right? So then you say to yourself, okay, I think the guy's bluffing. Let me walk through the hand and like rationally kind of reason through analytically the way this hand played out to see if it's logical that the guy is bluffing. So you say to yourself, okay, well, and I don't know the hand or what the specifics of the hand don't matter, but like, okay, he bet the flop, he checked the turn, he bet the river. Would he take this line for value, or would he do it with a bluff? And so you're kind of using deductive reasoning to confirm or deny your hypothesis when you have that intuitive read. So I would argue more that like your intuition precedes your logical analytical mind, and then you're using the logic to kind of like understand your own intuition and see if that process makes sense. So a lot of times when I get the feeling like, oh, yesterday I called a big bluff on the river, and I was right, and I was like, okay, I feel like he's bluffing, but why? Let me think about it. I didn't just call right away, and sometimes you do, but I was thinking about, okay, what types of hands could he have here? What types of hands would he value bet here? What types of hands would he bluff here? And does it make sense for him to be bluffing here? And then I thought through the hand, and then I used my hand range funnel, and then I realized like, oh, okay, well, there's actually quite a few hands that he could be bluffing with, and this actually makes sense for him to bluff. Then it comes down to like, okay, do you have, and then it really comes down to execution. And so I think like, half of this is understanding, look, when your logical mind backs up your intuition, that's a home fucking run, right? You have your intuitive read that the guy is bluffing. And then you have your logical mind telling you that when you reason through the hand using deductive reasoning, it's likely that he's bluffing. You got that marriage, right? You're not having this combative thing where like logically you're supposed to fold, but intuitively you're supposed to call. In those times, I usually trust my gut because it's usually right, because that also is my skill set. Like I'm good at reading people, and I think my best skill in poker is playing like high stakes live poker. So in cash games, so I think like that's something that I rely on, and that is right with a high degree of certainty, a high degree of accuracy. So I rely on that in these big moments. But then the second part of that is execution, man. Like so many people tell me, and you'll hear this all the time, or you might, resonate with this, or you see people say this like, oh, I knew that guy was bluffing there. And it's like, okay, but did you call? No, you folded. Like, so that doesn't count. Like you lost, like you're wrecked. Like it doesn't matter if you knew the guy was bluffing. What matters is, did you execute on what you knew? And so a lot of it is not only being able to use the self-awareness to understand what your intuitive mind is saying and then use your logical mind to back up your intuition, but it's having the courage to execute on what you think is the right play. And so that's a whole separate part of emotional mastery, which is like having the courage and the confidence and being able to separate yourself from the money and not, let your ego get in the way and not worry about what other people think, especially on this live stream where it's like, oh, the whole world's watching. If I call here and I'm wrong, I'm going to look like an idiot. There's that pressure. There's like, there's all that, all those things that could go through your mind that create this sort of fear-based mechanism where people end up just sort of like taking the safe route because they don't want to be wrong. And so they don't end up following through on their intuition because it's risky. And what if they're wrong, right? So there's a lot of layers to this, and there's not like one super simple, clean solution. But I think, that approach in poker and in life of always trying to get to that next level and get 1% better every day and try and reach a level of individual mastery will then help that will then manifest at the table, where like if you can master yourself, your emotions, your thought, your self-awareness, then you're a lot likely to be better at executing these things in real time at the table. So I first try and master myself, and then I try and apply those skills that I've used to build up my own, my own skills to poker. And that's where I'm kind of like channeling what I'm doing through the poker table. And that's, a super important part. And I think you guys see it a lot in the high stakes games, like there's certain spots where people know they should do it, but they don't do it. And that's what separates the good from the great. And that's what makes poker a sick game, man. That's it. All right, we got to be quick. All right, cool. We'll do one more. A funny story about Macau? Sure, that's a kind of on-the-spot hard question. Let me think. Okay, so yeah, one time I played with this guy, and so his name, well, we didn't have a name, right? And none of these guys speak English, right? And so we don't know how to identify him. So these random people get like random nicknames. So one guy was named Mohawk because he had a big mohawk. Another guy was named whatever. We have a lot of different names for these VIPs. And so this one guy, this was when smoking was still allowed in Macau. This was like the early days, like 2012, 2013, 2014, I think it was banned, 2015, something in there. So smoking was still allowed at the table, and it was quite intrusive if you don't smoke, quite obnoxious, frankly, because there would be, let's say, 4 people at the table that would be smoking, and they're not casual smokers or social smokers. They're like extreme chain smokers. So they don't eat at all. They never go to the bathroom, it seems like. It's really weird. I feel like I go to the bathroom 3 times an hour. I drink so much water. They don't go to the bathroom, they don't drink, they just smoke. And so they don't eat and they don't sleep, and they just smoke for 20 hours. So they smoke 2-3 packs. So this one guy, he smoked so much, and he always seemed to sit next to me, which sometimes was a blessing and sometimes it wasn't, depending if he was on my left or my right. But this guy would smoke more than anyone. This guy smoked all the time, and he had these this, I don't know, they find ways to have all these social status things in China. So he had this pack of cigarettes that were gold or something. They were some super Bentley fucking cigarettes. They weren't just $10 cigarettes, or I don't know how much cigarettes cost, but they were just this clearly Louis Vuitton cigarettes or whatever they were for this Bentley designer. So he had these cigarettes there. And one time I picked up the pack to like see them, and he like didn't speak English, like he didn't speak. I couldn't like ask him, and this was like maybe a little like, you know, strong of me. Like I just kind of like picked up his like cigarette pack just like to look at it because it was like this beautifully like designed thing, and like the look on this guy's face was like, you know, he was just like it was like I like touched his good luck charm or something like that. Like he was just like, you know, kind of like I crossed the line. So then after that, I was like, you know, we gave this guy the name Chimney because he smoked so much. He like smoked like a chimney. So he was this like very sort of like peculiar guy, and he loved to play the slot machines. And so he loved the slot machine so much that he had his own slot machine at the Wynn. And there's this like VIP area kind of by the poker room. So if you can imagine here at the Hustler, like this is the live stream room, and then they're like the slot machine area would be behind me, and then there's like a VIP slot machine area which is like you only go in if you're like, you know, wheeling or pulling a certain amount. So he had his own slot machine there, and one time he was playing at the table. He was playing in one of the slot machines, but he like had like, you know, fallen asleep at one of the slot machines, whatever. He just like was kind of like there, and I see him like, you know, get up, and he's like running across, you know, from the poker table in like the slot machine area, like across to the other area, and I'm like, you know, I look at the other guys, we're like talking, like trying to figure out what's going on. This guy's like 60, you know, and he's like has a cigarette in his hand. He's like 60. He's like smoking this like lean, slender guy. He's like sprinting across, like he's like booking it across the fucking slot machine room. I'm like, what is he doing? And it turns out that like he had like a horse like pulling the other slot for him that was like also his slot machine. And so he's like two-tabling the slot machines, right? Where he's like pulling his own slot machine, and then like he would be at the poker table. So he'd have like a seat at our game, and he would be like taking a break when he was stuck to go like play the slots. But his like partner was like playing the other slots, who was like his horse. So he's like running across because the slot machine's like going off, and he's like winning the jackpot. And I just remember that moment of like him like this like 6-year-old guy just like booking it across the poker room slot machine floor. And I was just like, dude, this is like some next level shit. Anyway, I probably have some more random stories, but this is the first one that comes to mind. Anyway, guys, you're amazing. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your questions. I'm Alec Torelli. Come find me on social or consciouspoker.com. Stay tuned. We're coming up with hand reviews right now, right after this.
Chat Pro, slow roll, never fold. Raise it up. Chat Pro, slow roll, never fold. Raise it up. Chat Pro, slow roll, never fold. Slow roll, never fold. Slow roll, never fold. Raise it up. Raise it up. Chat Pro. Chat Pro, slow roll, never fold. Raise it up. Chat Pro, slow roll, never fold. Raise it up. Chat Pro, slow roll, never fold. Slow roll, never fold. Slow roll, never fold. Raise it up. Raise it up. Chat Pro.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. Alec Torelli here, your host for the pregame show. Thank you for being here with us at The Hustler. We are excited. We got 1 hour of pregame left with yours truly doing strategy reviews from my last 2 previous sessions on the high stakes game, breaking down step by step for you my decision-making process and some of the most key hands, hopefully to help you take your game to the next level on behalf of me and Conscious Poker. Pumped to be here. Stay tuned after this. Of course, we'll have the stream coming for you, the 5-500 ante-game today, kickstarting at 5 p.m. Mariano, Matisau, the usual suspects. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be a sick game. So we are going to dive into some hands here now. And let's start with the Queen's hand if we can, because that happened first in the stream. Is that possible? I know I screwed up the order, and I'm sorry. Pepe. Yeah, so basically I did pregame yesterday. Thank you all for your positive messages and support. I got a lot of positive feedback from that, and so that really means a lot to me. Also, congrats to everyone that bought a piece on Stake Kings. I sold 10% of myself, and I did well yesterday. I won, so congrats to everyone. That's super inspiring. You guys were supporting me on the show, and that really means a lot. I'm also selling a piece today. I think it might be sold out, but just follow me on social media at Alec Torelli or ConsciousPoker.com. I'm sending emails to my subscribers first that are the most loyal subscribers to get a piece of me in future games. It's all free, no markup. So I'm just doing it as a thank you to you guys and your support over the years. So these hands we're going to talk about today are from my last 2 streams. So some of the hands are from 2 streams ago, so like a week before yesterday, so like 8 days ago, and some of the hands are from yesterday. I didn't have a chance to do all the hands in yesterday's pregame stream, so I've been playing a lot of poker. So anyway, we'll talk all about hands from the 25, 50, 100 game with 100 ante, and most of the time a 200 straddle. And yeah, so it's a mixture of both sessions, so just keep that in mind. But the first 2 hands are from 2 weeks ago, and 1 hand from yesterday. So I think we're going to dive in now. Let's play it. Let's let it run.
Vegas? Yeah.
Okay.
I was in Vegas last week, too. We drove here from I got back time. First time playing, you said you won, right?
Excited, yeah.
I got back Monday. Not the time to talk right now. 3 to go. So then,
I was so excited.
$300 straddle this hand.
and it was like a 6 hour. You lost a little bit, too, right? You ran bad.
Okay. I ran bad that morning.
Yeah, I remember you ran bad.
Oh, okay.
And, like, bring that guy back. We didn't realize that he was a killer. Somebody been big. I don't remember exactly.
Alec with queens again. Let's see if it goes better this time.
From Miami who drove from Vegas. That's who you were. Was it really?
Well, it's a lot of equity for Big Pepe. He's donking. Donking feels kind of good for Alec because he doesn't expect his opponent to donk a 10. He thinks his opponent will likely check if he had a 10 to trap. So this kind of makes Pepe's range perceivably at least a little bit weaker.
Yeah. So a couple things to note here. You heard the commentator, Christian Soto was commentating on the show, did a great job, by the way. But he was mentioning like Alec has queens again. Let's see if it goes better this time. I was like, maybe an hour into this session, and I had lost a few hands in 3-bet pots. So I lost once with queens in a 3-bet pot. I think to Pepe actually. I don't really remember, but I basically lost in a 3-bet pot with queens, and then I lost another hand, I think, in a 3-bet pot. But I wanted to kind of highlight that because I notice a lot of times when I work with clients and stuff, like people get caught up in like the momentum of the game, and then because like things are going badly, they change their strategy even though they haven't made any mistakes or done anything wrong. But like a lot of times things go poorly in the sense that you lose just because of the nature of the run out and the cards. And so like in spots like these, people like maybe not with queens, so maybe I don't want to, this maybe isn't the exact perfect spot to highlight this concept, but if I had like 10s or something, or jacks, which is like normally a 3-bet, or maybe like ace jack suited or ace queen, people are like, oh, I lost the last 2 hands, things are going bad, I'm running bad, so I'm just gonna like take this passive line and just like pot control and try not to lose money and have this like loss minimization sort of approach because they're like, they get on defense, right? Because they're kind of beaten down from losing. But I think it's really important to basically only alter your strategy if the decision-making process is flawed. So like if you're doing everything right and you're just losing, it's really important, it's even more important in those times to keep up your aggression if your aggression is warranted and if you're doing everything right, and to play as if you were winning. So yes, your image might be changed a little bit in the game if you're like 3-betting a lot and then you're losing pots and then you 3-bet a third time, like I did in this hand. This was like my third 3-bet or my fourth 3-bet or whatever. Like people might perceive it differently, but that's like up to you to adjust to how opponents perceive your range because you're losing and you're still being aggressive. But the wrong strategy, in my opinion, would be just to like flat and play defense because you're like scared of losing more or you want to stop your downswing or whatever. It's really important to play the same way, and I see this mistake often, so I wanted to highlight that, number one. Number two, let's talk about post-flop strategy a little bit. Like, in this spot, you know, he opens and calls a re-raise out of position. So definitely, you know, on a 10-10 X board, like 10-10-7, some 10s are possible. Like he can have 10-9 suited or Jack-10 suited or Ace-10 suited or something like that. Those are all possible hands pre-flop. But when you look at, and this is, you know, what we talked about yesterday with my hand reading process that I invented called the hand range funnel, which is just a methodology to help people hand read and figure out what their opponents are most likely holding. If you think about, you know, hand funnels start very, very wide and they progressively get narrower throughout the hand. So if you think about it, like pre-flop, Pepe's raising with quite a few hands. He's calling a re-raise out of position with fewer of those hands. But then when he leads the flop, his range is a lot narrower than it is when he raises pre-flop and calls a re-raise, because a lot of the hands that he raises pre-flop and calls a re-raise with, if you think about it on the flop, he's not going to be leading the flop with that many hands. Like he's probably not going to lead with, you know, ace, jack of diamonds, like just no pair, no draw, and just take the initiative out of position, right? So a lot of these random bluffs that he has pre that didn't connect with this board are going to check. I also think, and the commentator mentioned this too, like, when he bets, it's a little bit, or a lot less likely, I don't think a little bit, I think it's a lot less likely that he has a 10, because I think a 10 is going to check, letting me continue to bluff or bet with an overpair or continue my lead in the pot. A 10 is going to want to get me to bet and then check raise, or maybe just check call the trap and make his range look weaker. But either way, a 10 is going to want to let me bet, because this is a board I'm going to be betting quite often. So it doesn't really make sense for a 10 to lead, although I think that would be kind of a good play because it's counterintuitive. I just didn't feel like he was leading with a 10 here. Like my read in his, like my read in the middle of the moment was that he didn't have a 10. So what types of hands is he leading? Well, using that hand range funnel, you think about all the hands he can raise with pre-flop, and then all the hands he calls a re-raise with pre-flop, and then all the hands he leads with on the flop. They're not bluffs, they're not 10s. So it's one of two types of hands, in my opinion. The first type of hand is basically what he has, which is a sort of like a flush draw or combo draw. Like maybe he has a raw flush draw like queen jack of clubs. Well, I have the queen of clubs, king jack of clubs, but maybe he also just has like a straight draw and a flush draw like 9, like 8-9 or 9-6 or something, or maybe he has just a raw straight draw with a backdoor, like something like 8-9 of spades, or like maybe just 8-9 of diamonds, just like a straight draw with no backdoor. So those are one type of hands, right? These probably combo draws, but maybe just pure draws. So that's category number one. And category number two are hands that are like, oh, this is a decent flop and I don't want to face a lot of action out of position, so I'm just going to bet myself. So a hand, in my opinion, in that category is a hand like 9s, a hand like 8s, a hand like 7-6 suited, or 7-8 suited, maybe even jacks, maybe jacks. Certainly not going to be kings or aces. Again, using the hand range funnel, if you eliminate a hand from your opponent's range on any street for any reason, it's gone forever. This is one of the 3 principles of the hand range funnel. So because he didn't 4-bet pre and he called very quickly pre, just the way he was acting, it's, in my opinion, pretty clear he doesn't have kings or aces, so I discount those hands. So I really think he has something like what it looks like he has, like a flush draw and a straight draw, or like a weak type of pair. Now the question is, like, what does my hand, 2 queens, want to do against that hand? So that's something for you guys to think about. Once you pinpoint, and this is why I focus, like, in my teaching, in my coaching, like, always on hand reading, because once you figure out with a high degree of certainty the types of hands that you think your opponent has, it's a lot easier to make the right decision. Like if I know that his range is likely flush draws and weak pairs, well then with queens, it's a little easier to figure out what I should do to respond to that range, right? But if you don't know what his range is, or you get his range wrong, and you think he's likely to have a 10, well then you're going to respond differently, and you're probably going to respond incorrectly. So that's why I focus most of my teaching on hand reading, because I think it's the most common thing you're trying to do at the poker table, and once you do that, everything else becomes a lot easier. So did we get to my response to his flop action? Where did we pause this? Okay, so I want you guys to think about on your own, now that you've identified his hand range, we kind of walked you through that together. What's my best response here, right? Of course you can see his cards, but even if you couldn't, and you were just thinking about the types of hands he can have, what's the best way to respond to that? And also, one prudent thing for you guys to think about is, okay, I have 2 queens here with a club, so I have a great hand. But what if I didn't? What if I had a bluff? What if I had ace king? What would you do with that hand? And so you want to think about not only what you would do when you're reviewing and you're studying. Something I always enforce with clients is like, look, you're not going to be in the exact same spot in the future against this type of opponent. You're going to have a different hand. Like next time I'm in this spot, maybe I have ace king. So it's important and prudent to think about what you would do not only with this specific hand that you have against your opponent in this spot, but what you would do with all your hands. Right? Because next time you might have a different hand, and amateurs basically go through the situation and then they're unprepared for it, so they make a mistake and then they review it after. And some people don't even review it after. But what pros are doing is they're saying, okay, I'm going to prepare for a situation I haven't been in yet, so that when I'm in that situation, I've already prepared. I already know what I'm going to do because I've studied these spots and I'm prepared for the unknown. Right? And so that's something you want to think about on your own is like, how do you respond with different types of hands or against different types of opponents? Like, let's say this was a different opponent and it was like, a super tough aggro pro leading. What would you do then? Would you respond differently? Why or why not? What is his range or her range? And then how do you respond there? Right? So these are the types of things you can do to self-study on your own. But let's play and see the flop action, and then we'll talk about it.
See what Alec chooses. He's coming with the raise.
6 large.
What'd you help me, honey? 10,500.
Pepe, though, with a huge draw. Is he going to put him in? No,
How much
just a
more?
call.
It's 6,000 total, so 39 more. 4,000. Okay. Call 6,000.
16,000, just about going to the turn. Pepe looking for help. That's not help. Alec with about 2/3 pot left. I assume he's going to rip this in. If check two. Action still on Pepe.
Check.
All right, so in this spot, first action is the raise on the flop. So once we've identified the types of hands he's likely to have, combo draws or just pure draws, and like weak pairs underneath queens with showdown value, I think raising's the right play against those types of hands. You want to charge draws, and you want to charge made value. You don't want to call and let the draw come for free, or you don't want to call and let like a king roll off and then pocket eights, check folds. So against both the types of hands he has, raising is the best play. And that's a great spot to be in, because a lot of times you'll find yourself in a spot where against one type of hand your opponent can have, raising is correct, and against the other type, calling is correct. And that's when you have to go further down the decision-making tree and figure out what type of hand is more likely and which hand you want to like optimize for. And that's a little bit harder of a situation. But when both of the options are pointing towards one optimal outcome, then you have kind of a slam dunk play. And that's when the stars align and you can really make those highly profitable plays. And so I think raising is the best play against both. I think as for sizing, I wanted to raise big enough that it's not just free for him to call. I don't want to make it like 4,500, but I also want to make it small enough that he could think that I'm bluffing and jam over the top, right? Like if he has eights and doesn't believe me, maybe he thinks I have ace king, which maybe I would raise with ace king. And so maybe he's like, well, my eights are good. I'm going to force him to fold his ace king, which still has 25% equity against eights. And so he just jams it in, right? And I still have 11K behind. I can easily raise fold here. I'm not committed. Whereas if I made it like 10K, like I'm committed with any two cards, he's less likely to bluff, he's less likely to call with the draw, he's less likely to jam with the draw. So also if he has a draw, jamming is kind of sexy. Like if I'm bluffing and I fold, he wins like a 10K pot with 9 high, with no risk of like showing down his hand. And if he's called, like even if I have queens, he has 12 out or 11 outs. I guess I have the queen of clubs, but like whatever. He has a lot of outs. He has a combo draw. He's not in bad shape. unless I have like a 10 or something like that, or like maybe a higher flush draw. But either way, most of the time he's not in bad shape, especially against my overpairs. And so really jamming is like super tempting, and I wanted to make it tempting for him to jam. And I also think like long term, which I'm a little bit less concerned about in a lot of these spots, like for my range overall, like it's more of a balanced play, which has like some but not a ton of value to me in certain spots. Anyway, so I made it 6K. On the turn, it's a blank, he checks. I also think it's cool, like sizing wise, because and this is something I always encourage people to do too, especially when I'm working with people, I really try and get them to think about not only what's happening right now in this moment, but what's likely to happen on future streets, depending on how you respond to the action. So one thing I'm always thinking about is like, okay, if I make it 6K now and he calls, how big will the pot be on the turn, and how much will my stack be left? How much remaining stack will I have relative to the pot? So you can see here in this spot, I kind of set up the hand to have 2/3 pot sized bet left on the turn. So because I made it 6K and he called, and I have 11K left, the pot's like 15K, whatever, so I could basically have a natural size stack to jam. So if, for example, let's say I had like 20K behind, I might have raised a little bit bigger on the flop to like 7,200, so that when he calls, the compounding is such that the pot is bigger and my stack is lower, so that jamming on the turn still feels natural. You can also decide how to like sort of articulate your bet sizes based on if you want to make the hand a 2-street game, meaning all in on the turn, or a 3-street game, which is all in on the river. So if I had like 40K behind, I may still make it 6K and then bet 12K on the turn, and then I could jam the river. So you kind of have to think about how your stack size will be relative to the pot size before you make your decision on any given street, and then think about how it will progress over future streets. And so this is something I'm always encouraging people to think about as well. So again, using the hand range funnel, what types of hands does he raise preflop with, call a 3-bet with, bet the flop with, and call a raise with, and check the turn with, right? That's where we are down the funnel. We're getting narrower and narrower. So we have preflop, preflop number 2, flop, flop number 2, and turn. So we're really going down this funnel until we get to a very small group of hands that it's likely that he has. We discounted 10s, discounted some big pairs. Really, we're at basically the stronger part of his draws. So like, you know, more likely a combo draw than a raw draw. Maybe like, you know, like 9-7, like 9-6 of spades is a lot less likely than 9-6 of clubs at this point, given that he called a raise out of position when I'm short. And I also think some of his maybe like 7-6s might fold. Like those hands are kind of bad. So maybe he's at like the better part of his weak pairs, like 8s, 9s, and jacks, or like ace-7. And then he's also with like the better part of his draws. So yeah, if you like this process, the hand range funnel, it's totally free at consciouspoker.com. I send out a newsletter every week to people to help them with poker strategy, and you can download it. It's like a 7-page PDF, and I'll send it to you. It's just like the exact process I use in every hand I play. Break it down so that you can apply it to your own game too. So anyway, in this spot, you know, I basically have like, against both of those types of hands, I still want to be shoving. I want to shove to protect against his draws, to deny equity. And I want to shove in case he has 8s, because I don't want a scare card to come and him to fold. And like, if he didn't believe me on the flop, the turn didn't change anything. If I'm on a draw, he's, you know, he's going to be priced into call with 8s if he thinks I have a draw. So I think I have a clear shove here. And if I'm wrong, let's say like I'm wrong and he has a 10, and I just misread the hand, which happens. Like sometimes I'm wrong. I misread spots. I'm human. Let's say he has ace-10, and I'm just like fucked. If I bet the turn, he's going to call me, right? But if I check the turn and the river comes like a 3, he's going to jam with ace-10. What am I going to do? I'm not going to fold. I still beat all of his random bluffs. I'm still going to call. So the only thing I did by checking the turn is I just gave him a free river to realize his equity for free when he has a draw, and I also did not charge him when he has like 8s or 9s. So checking doesn't really help. I'm gonna lose all my money regardless when he has me beat. So when I talked about like different spots and how people, you know, are best suited to respond, I'm not even thinking about the spot when I'm beat, because no matter what, I'm gonna lose all my money. So it's neutral in terms of like my EV when I'm beat. I'm gonna lose all of it if I bet, I'm gonna lose all of it if I check. So that's neutral. So I just delete that entirely. You notice I didn't even talk about what happens if he has a 10 because of that fact. And so I'm only focused on optimizing for the situation where I'm not beat, because the decisions I make on the flop and turn will have a different impact on the hands that I beat versus when he has me beat. So let's take a river. Let's take a turn on my side and see what happens. All in.
All in.
Alec puts it in.
There's all you can use.
Pepe frustrated. Didn't want to hear those words.
Ah, monster. Oh.
Oh my God. What do you need?
Straight flush.
Oh shit. He said straight flush.
Full house is good now.
Ah!
Once or twice.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you after you make your hand.
Make a decision.
It's after you make your decision. Sorry. I just make your decision. I don't want to affect it.
I don't have A9. For sure I have ace 9-6 and the 8. Impossible that. Ah. Like
9-6 clubs, yeah.
You weren't lying. Straight flush.
you have queens, kings.
That's three.
But he don't say open-ended.
No open-ended.
That's three. He say 8-9.
And then 8.
He don't say open-ended.
No open-ended. Let me see everywhere.
You fold?
Fold.
He folds, tips the dealer for the river.
Go twice. Go twice. See what happens.
You win, you
Brick,
win.
brick, good fold,
Yeah,
Pepe.
Try win.
Man, if you don't three bet, I win such a nice pot.
Oh, really?
Like 7 of diamonds.
Yeah, you win.
I
All
was
right.
gonna either flat or three bet.
Maybe it's
Oh,
a
God.
Nice hand, Alec. Finally takes one down with queens.
Yep. So just rounding that up, think good shove there, given the hand he had, but also the range he has. I think it plays well, and you can see, like, I mean, if you do the math, like, he's not even like making that bad of a call with 9 high on the turn. Like, if you look at his chance of winning, which is his equity, versus his pot odds, like, it's pretty damn close. Like, if I had 7K, like, he would be priced into call pretty much. So, like, I don't even, like, I guess mathematically I want him to call because it's like slightly losing, but it's not like some like slam dunk spot where I want him to call. So that's why shoving is so important, because you force that equity out of the pot and not to let it be realized for free. So anyway, hope that was instructive. Hope that helped. And let's keep going. We got some more hands to cover. Yes, exactly. The ace, the three-way pot. Yeah, all right. Sorry guys, we're just coordinating here.
They're going to tournament somewhere. Good for him.
Yes.
How many of you would go back to work if you won 200,000 tomorrow? Nick with another pretty one comes in with the 3-bet. Ace queen suited. Much better flop than last time though. However, baller with a monster top 2 pair. Collision incoming.
Bet 2,500.
Baller with the slow play. Maybe this brings in Alec with the gutter.
Yep. So, okay. Sorry, guys. Yeah, no. So, pre, I have a very standard open, like make it 600, like in the cutoff, that's just like super standard. Vertucci 3-bet me, and this was like, the second time or so on the session. Not reading too much into it that it's like the second time. I just think, he has a decent hand. He just plays solid poker, so think he has probably something decent. Shaun cold calls out of position in the, like one of the blinds. And so Shaun is like pretty tight as well. So like, I think he has something good. It kind of looks like he has what he has, like 10s, jacks, 9s, 8s, ace queen, ace jack type of thing. I don't think it's really ever ace king, so I think that's good for me because my king is probably live. But I think it's going to be like, maybe he has king queen suited and I'm just in bad shape. The main thing here pre is like, look, I'm not in love with this spot. I'm against, I'm in position against one person, which is really good, but I'm out of position against another, which is bad. But the main thing pre is just like, I'm getting a good price. Like I'm just calling 1,400 to win 5K, and like that's just math. So that's a good spot to be. I wish I had a better hand, I really do, but I didn't. So whatever, I called with this hand, and that's poker. So post flop, we paused on me, right? So check. Yeah. Okay. So we go check. Shaun checks. He's going to be checking ace jack 4 like 100% here. I check, which I'm going to be doing 100% too. And Vertucci bets, and he bets like 2,500. And then, so first of all, his bet on this board with 3 people in the pot is like pretty strong. Like I don't think, like maybe he bets here with queens just like because he has the lead and he's just betting because like I have the lead and whatever, but like queens is not in a great spot. You got cold called from a Shaun who can easily have like jacks or ace queen or ace jack or something like that, ace 10 suited. And then you have me behind who like I can have ace jack or jacks or 4s or like ace 5 suited, ace 6, I can have all the aces. So like it's not a great spot to be like betting with queens, and it's not a great spot to be like stone bluffing. I almost think it's almost better to bluff in a weird way than betting with queens. But it's also not a great bluff spot because you have 2 strong ranges in the pot and two good players, and like it's just not a great spot. So I think Vertucci betting here is pretty strong. Like I think he's going to be, more towards value, right? So Shaun knows that. Okay, so now Shaun is calling in the worst position because he has Vertucci's range, who's the strongest. Vertucci could have 3 aces, 3 jacks, whatever. And he also has me behind. I can still have a lot of the, I don't have aces ever, but I can have jacks, I can have ace jack, I can have 4s, I can have ace 4, and I can have other random aces. So like, he's calling in the worst position because he's sandwiched between the 2 of us and he doesn't know what I'm going to do. So when Shaun calls after Vertucci bets with a strong hand, Shaun is very likely to have something strong. Like he's probably not going to have like jack 10, or like 10s or 9s. Like he's going to be having much more hands like ace queen. Maybe he's trapping with jacks. Maybe he has ace jack. Maybe ace 10 suited, maybe a weirdly played ace king. That's possible too. Like if he had ace king pre, he's definitely just flatting this flop. But like it's very likely that one of them has a strong hand. So I guess my point is the chance that like Vertucci has air and Shaun has like a jack, like that's very unlikely. We're much more likely on the side of the spectrum where it's like Vertucci has ace king and Shaun has ace queen. Like those types of combos are much more likely. So all this is to say that it's on me. I'm calling 2,500 to win 11,000. I'm getting a really, really good price. Like the pot odds are very, very good. And my implied odds are very good because when you're drawing to a hand that's kind of disguised, like if a queen comes, it's not like, oh, Alec has king 10. Like it's not obvious someone has a straight when a queen peels on the turn in this spot, given the pre-flop raising and the betting on the flop. Like it's a disguised straight. It's not like a 9-8 deuce board and the turn is a 7, where it's like, oh wow, Jack 10 got there. It's kind of obvious. It's like one of the obvious hands that you put people on that board. This is like a little bit more disguised. So number 1, we're against really strong hands, and that's very good. When you're drawing, you want people to have very strong hands because, well, I guess sometimes you want them to have weak hands because maybe you can bluff if the turn goes check check. But when you're drawing in a spot like this where you're drawing to the nuts and it's likely someone has a strong hand, you want them to have a strong hand because if you hit your hand, you can get paid. So you have what's called implied odds, which means a chance of winning a lot of money if your card comes. That's what you want. And number 2, you want your draw to be relatively disguised because if they put you on a draw and the turn is like, let's say this board was like, Jack 10-4 with a flush draw and the turn comes like an 8, like a 9 of spades, like, it's not it's hard to get paid with king queen. I mean, I would still call the flop with king queen because you're just getting the right price. It's just math, but it's a lot harder to make your hand because like there's a flush draw out there, and the flush draw kind of like is a scary card that people shut down on. They're not going to just go broke with one pair. This board is rainbow. I wish I had a backdoor flush draw. That would make my hand a lot better. But all this is to say, when an offsuit queen does peel, or any queen is offsuit, but when a queen does peel, it's just like very hard for people to fold two pair or a set because it's just like hard to put me on a straight. So anyway, this is a really good spot to draw. All this is to say, I'm getting a good price. My hand is disguised. It's likely they have strong hands. When you have those three things in your favor, that your hand is disguised, you're getting a good price, it's likely they have, you know, strong hands. Very good time to draw. So I peel here, and let's see what happens.
There's no flush draw on flop. The queen is clean. He agrees. Let's go to the turn. This pot getting big fast. That's the nuts for Alec. What a card. Top 2 for Nick. Top and middle for Baller. And the nuts for Alec. 14,000 in the middle. Is Nick going to check? I don't think so. He's not checking.
6,000.
Just around half pot. Ball is going nowhere. And now back to Alec with the nuts. What a dream.
That's fair. That's a fair statement by Soto. Okay, so turn comes a dream card. I'm not going to pretend like, you know, I think I played this hand well, but like obviously I got super lucky to hit the dream card. I know that. Thank you. I get it. That's part of poker. It's getting lucky, but setting yourself up to get lucky in the right spots where there's asymmetry to the upside where you can lose a little if you don't get lucky. And basically, I'm not going to lose any more if I don't get lucky, and I can win a lot if I do. That's kind of what you're looking for in poker. This is one of those spots. So take this principle and hopefully apply it to your own game, and that's my hope for you guys. Also, the lucky part. I hope you hit your gut shots too. So anyway, the turn is a queen. Shaun checks, which I think he's going to do most of the time here. Like I think, given the flow of the action and the board and like the fact that Vertucci has the lead and he's kind of repping a very strong hand pre and also on the flop, Shaun's just going to be checking here most of the time. I also think like I guess I could lead here but it just looks pretty weird when like I'm leading into two people that could have sets and two pairs. Like pocket queens is possible, ace queen is possible, ace jack is possible, aces is possible, jacks is possible. Ace king's kind of like worst case scenario at this point. Like one person having ace king and the other person having better than that is probably the most likely outcome. So leading into those hands is very, very strong. And I think what I want to do with most of my hands is check, and I want to get a free card if I'm drawing with like Jack X of hearts, or if I have a weak ace like ace 10, I want a free card here. I don't want to be betting into this spot. So I think checking just looks a little bit better for all of my hands, and that's what I do. And it also does what ends up happening here is that if Vertucci bets, which he's supposed to do with all of his strong hands, and if Shaun is kind of sandwiched in between and has to call, that is a really good spot for me. So you want to trap the people behind you, and if Shaun is kind of behind me, right? That's something to think about. Yes, only Vertucci is left to act behind me, but you also have to think about what happens if Vertucci bets and if Shaun is left to act, not knowing what I have, right? Like I can easily have at this point, like I can have a weak ace, like ace 10, right? Maybe I just, and then like if Shaun calls, like I'm gonna fold that hand. So a Shaun can't just fold if Vertucci bets because he doesn't know that I'm nutted. I gave him no indication that I have the nuts. So he can't just fold his value because like he doesn't know what I have. So I sandwich Shaun in between me and Vertucci, and so it's just a good spot to check. Vertucci takes the bait. Well, not really, he has top 2. It's not like really bait, but he has, a good hand, but he also is like, betting here. And it's really a dream spot. Like, I turned the perfect card, so like, it's just a great spot for me. I'm totally acknowledge that. Vertucci bets is Shaun, which is totally standard with top 2. Like, I mean, I don't think Vertucci he might not bet ace king here. He's definitely going to be betting sets and two pairs and straights, obviously, if he has king 10. But He might not bet ace king just because at this point he's probably like, well, someone might have nothing and the other person might have like ace jack, ace queen, or a set. So he might check ace king here, but he's forced to bet all of his like better than ace king hands. He bets, and at this point I'm pretty much thinking he has better than ace king for the reasons we talked about. I don't think he's going to be bluffing this turn because it's just kind of like a weird turn to bluff. It's a very dangerous turn to bluff against two people. So I think he's going to be checking bluffs, and when he bets, I think it's pretty much just strictly value, especially with how he was playing. Shaun now also knows that like Vertucci's betting with a strong range, and he's still calling with me behind. So Shaun, in a weird way, has to have a stronger hand than Vertucci, or at least like strong enough hands to justify calling Vertucci, who's betting with a strong hand. So, and he also has me behind, who's like uncapped too. So I know Shaun has something really good. I think, you know, Shaun's worst hand is like ace king. Maybe he has like jack 10 of hearts, which is in a weird way better than ace king because it can like improve easier. But Shaun never has like a weak ace. Like he's never in there with a weak ace. He's never in there with like a king queen or queen 10, like some random bullshit. He's got like, you know, ace jack or like ace queen or a jacks or something like that. So I know that both of them have very strong hands. And so at this point, like my shove looks very strong, but like it's just sort of math. Like number one, if I have a bluff like jack 10 of hearts or king jack of hearts, those are good candidates to bluff here. I block some straights, and you know, if I get both of them to fold, like that would be an amazing win for me with the worst hand. And if I'm called, I have outs, right? I have like, let's say 12 outs or 15 outs, depending on what hands I have. I have like 12, 15 outs, whatever it is. So that would be one of my bluffs. So to balance out my bluffs, I have to have some value. Also on the value side, if one of them has two pair or one of them has a set, like their two pairs a little bit less priced in, but a set is like sort of priced in to call. Like if I jam here and Vertucci has aces, like if you think about how big, and this is what I was talking about in the last hand that I reinforced with people I'm working with, is like, look, you want to think about how big the pot is going to be if you make a decision, because that is going to be the framework from which your opponents are thinking. So if I jam 20K, he's calling 20 minus 6 is like whatever, 14K into a pot of 40K. So his risk reward is 14 to win 40. And if he has a set, he's not folding with 14 to win 40, because even if I show him a straight, he can still boat. So like, and he doesn't know I have a straight. He thinks I might be has two pairs. So he's not ever folding a set. But I want, just like in the hand against Pepe, I want that hand to be forced to put money in the pot on a draw. He's drawing with a set against my straight, so that I force him to put money in the pot when he's behind. If I just call here and the river's a heart, maybe it gets checked around. If the river's a king, if the river's a 10, or if the board pairs, it's the same thing as with Pepe. I'm letting them realize their equity for free. I'm basically letting him draw to 12 outs, or whatever, you know, however many outs he has, or however many outs Vertucci or Shaun have. I'm letting them all draw for free, and that's not good. So for those reasons, I like a shove here, but let's see what happens.
All this action in front of you, you're sitting with the stones.
All in.
All in.
All of it. Not what Nick wanted to hear. It's a tough spot.
This is
99.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nick in the blender. Can Nick find the fold?
hit the color.
Nick in the tank. Thinking, what does he beat? Can Alec be bluffing? Maybe like a 10-9 of hearts? Or King X of hearts? I don't know. Jack X of hearts? 5 X of hearts? Puts the money in.
How much is it? I take this
Pot's
back.
60,000 now. Brown baller. Does baller think he can be winning? Goes all in and a call in front of you. You have top and middle.
Yeah, sure.
Tough spot.
Sweat. I fold. I
Yeah.
can't beat 3 jacks.
Good fold.
I have a straight. You want it twice?
Yeah. You have king 10, huh?
I have king 10, yeah.
Ace Jack.
Twice?
Whatever you want. Twice for one. I don't
Yeah,
care.
call. He has
Twice?
Ace King for sure. He has Ace King.
Yes, queens.
Nick has Ace King for sure.
Yes, yes.
Ace. Yeah, I knew the queen was so bad for me. I had Ace Jack.
If you have flash, you can.
Huh?
Yes, sir. Two rivers.
Nick looking to pair this
I knew
board with
the
an
queen
ace
was
or a
so
queen.
bad for me. I was like, just fade a king or a queen one time on the turn. And then the queen
Half
came
for
and I was
Alec.
like, fuck.
And the other half for Alec. 60,000 just
If
about
Nick
going
calls,
Alec Torelli's
I
way.
might have called. I probably would have
Big
still folded,
comeback
though.
from last
The only
week.
bluff I could think of was Jack 10 of hearts.
Nice.
And I didn't think he could have Jack 10 of hearts. I would have folded probably anyway.
Yeah, I mean, great run out. This was one of those dream spots where things worked out. I think Shaun made a good fold. Vertucci has a tough call because if you run the math, like I need to have worse hands than ace queen for him to call here. And so that's just part of how it works, but he's getting such a good price. I really can't blame him for calling. I think calling here is kind of like standard. I think almost everyone would call with his hand. And if Shaun once Vertucci calls, basically doesn't like beat anything. Like he's basically hoping I'm bluffing and Vertucci's calling with ace king. And like, just like we talked about earlier, where it's unlikely Vertucci's bluffing on the flop and if Shaun's calling with air, this is another spot where it's really unlikely I'm bluffing and Vertucci's calling with a worse hand than ace jack. So I think ace jack's, I mean, it's a big hand to fold, but it's kind of like, it's definitely the right fold here. Like, it's like a pure fold. Like I think this should fold all the time because like, it's just, it would be a very, very loose call here, even though it seems like, oh my gosh, I have a really good hand. One of the things about poker is sometimes ace high is, you know, a really good call, and sometimes like two pair is a really bad hand. And so like poker is very situational. And so when you think through the hand and like really analyze it, that's why hand reading is so important, because like when you're good at hand reading and you can really figure out which spots to be aggressive and which spots to be conservative, it's just a lot easier to make decisions when you're with a high degree of confidence can put your opponents on the types of hands they have. And hopefully this was illustrative for you. And again, if you want more, it's just at consciouspoker.com. It's totally free. Download my hand reading system, and I'll send it to you. It's in a PDF. So hope that helps. We got one more hand, and we got a few minutes. Let's make it happen.
What possibly? Like, even if I was
Deuce,
eight,
deuce, eight.
yeah, that's the only.
Or deuce, deuce, deuce.
Or 8, 8 deuce, or whatever.
You raise 11.
What the hell? You guys are.
Henry with jacks now. Pepe, I don't think Pepe's going to fold a hand the rest of the night.
Nick Airball teach you how to play poker?
Oh yeah. I think it's
No, and that time you don't even know him.
yeah.
Kind of a bad flop for everybody except Pepe. At least Pepe has a gut shot.
I don't even know what hand we're talking about. Sorry, bro. Oh, I didn't think we were going to do this one. Okay, shit. Okay, fine. Yeah, sorry guys, we were talking about a different hand. So can you walk me through the pre-flop action? I'm sorry guys. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry guys.
What possibly? Like, you found
There's
eight.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the only.
Or this.
Or 8 deuce or whatever.
You raised 11. What the hell? These guys are.
Henry with jacks now. Pepe, I don't think Pepe's going to fold a hand the rest of the night.
Nick Airball teach you how to play poker?
Oh yeah. I think it's cool.
No, in that time you don't even
Yep.
know him.
Check.
Kind of a bad flop for everybody except Pepe. At least Pepe has a gut shot.
Yeah. Okay, so this one's kind of interesting. It's kind of like a random unconventional spot. Not necessarily the biggest hand, but it's just like a cool spot that it's kind of like I guess just unconventional, and that's kind of I think one of the cool things about highlighting this. So I rate like Francisco limps, which if you watch Francisco play, he's raising with about like 5% of hands pre-flop. So he's playing a lot more hands than that, but he's only raising with like 5%. So most of the time he plays hands, he limps, and he does that with a lot of hands. He does that with strong hands, weak hands, whatever. That's just how he plays, right? That is what it is. So he limps, and I am after him with sixes. I make it 400, which I think is pretty standard. I guess I could limp behind, but like raising is pretty standard too. Henry with jacks on the button. Of course, I don't know he has jacks. Like loose aggressive player, solid player, makes it 1100, and then Francisco cold calls. Is that right? Oh, that's right. Sorry. Pepe cold calls and Francisco folds, and this is a great spot for me. I have Pepe cold calling, who could potentially have like a lot of hands. Like he's probably not super premium because he would probably just re-raise again with those, make it like 4K pre if he had like aces, kings, or ace king. So when he cold calls here, yeah, he could have some like medium hands, like, you know, 10s or 9s or 8s or like whatever, all those medium kind of hands, and he could also have like maybe some weak aces, but more likely to have like middle pairs and Broadway like rundowns, like king queen suited or king jack suited or king 10 suited or whatever like that, right? And then I also have Henry in the pot, who like 3-bets, you know, a decent amount of hands. He's not just like only like super premiums, and he's not like guaranteed to have ace king, right? Like I think people put people on ace king when they 3-bet. Sure, that's possible. He can have some suited aces too, fine. But he also just has, you know, maybe some 10-9 suiteds, and you know he's balanced. He's capable of mixing it up. So those are the hands I'm against, and this is a great spot for me with sixes. I'm closing the action, so I'm guaranteed to see the flop, and that's important because like if I'm calling here. Like, let's say I was Francisco and I was calling with sixes, like, it's a lot more risky because he has me behind him with an uncapped range, meaning I can have aces, I can have kings. I would play aces this way. So Francisco calls not knowing that I'm not going to back raise, meaning Francisco calls unaware of whether or not I will raise again, which will then force him to fold. It's a lot more risky for him to risk 1,100 or 1,000 more because, number one, he's risking 1,000. And number two, he's calling with someone else behind him. So it's risky for Pepe to call here. It's risky for Francisco to call. It's a lot better for me to call because I guarantee that I see the flop, and I'm only calling 700. So this is one of those spots, like, this is kind of like the hand with King 10. Like, this is the exact spot you're looking for. You're looking for a spot where your hand is very easy to play. You can make a lot of money if you hit your hand. Your hand is disguised if you hit your hand. Like, if the board comes with a 6, people aren't like, oh, Alec has a set. Like, 6 is like a non-scary, innocuous card. So, and you're guaranteed to see the flop. You're risking a little. I'm risking 700 to win a pot of like 2,500. Like, this is a great, or 3,000, whatever. This is a great spot. This is like the perfect spot in poker. Like, if I could just be in this spot, these spots don't come up that often because the way the game plays, like, people force you out of pots, or sometimes it goes like, you know, raise, re-raise, re-raise, and you have to fold your hand and stuff like that. But if I could be in this spot like just 100 times a night, that would just be a dream for me. These are very profitable spots, very easy to play, unlikely to make a mistake, and potentially going to win a good hand. So anyway, I call the flop. I call pre-flop. Where do we pause? Yeah, so post-flop, the flop's ace, deuce, 3 with 2 hearts, right? Okay, cool. Pepe, sorry, I'm like replaying the hand in my head while I'm thinking about the strategy. Pepe checks, and it's now on me. So I think the clear, like, just sort of like standard default line here is just to check, because you have Henry behind you, and people just typically check to the razor. But if I lead here, I put Henry in a really tough spot because I'm betting, and he has Pepe behind him. So I'm kind of sandwiching him in between me and Pepe. And then I also can potentially, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? I could potentially force out hands like under pairs. Like, you know, if Pepe, like if Henry has 10s, what's he gonna do? Like, he has me leading, and I could easily have ace. Like, I could have an ace, I could have a set, I could have 2 pair. It's not like I'm just leading with complete air all the time on this board. My lead is kind of strong. Then Henry has Pepe behind, who could also have an ace. So so Henry's kind of sandwiched in between us two, and he basically has to play really straightforward. Like, he can't really do anything here. So I put him in a really tough spot. Pepe's range is also the weakest, right? Like, he has, not necessarily the weakest, but he has a lot of these like random draws. And so if I lead and Henry folds and Pepe calls, I can get Henry to fold a better hand and Pepe to call with a worse hand. And so let's see what happens.
Alec is donking here. That's interesting. I've never seen. Didn't expect that.
That makes 2 of us.
I don't think Henry's going anywhere with the Jack of Hearts in his hand.
Yeah.
But he does.
It's just that conscious poker on YouTube.
Jacks to fold.
Yeah.
It's the best hand to fold and the worst hand to call. Alec.
Yeah, one short. See you, bud. Sorry.
Check.
Yeah, so flop I lead, I get this kind of like dream scenario, right? Where like normally in this hand, what's supposed to happen is it's supposed to go check Pepe, I check. Henry probably just bets jacks here, like just for like to deny equity and just to like make the hand easy to play. And he bets, and then Pepe calls and I fold, and then Henry wins the pot. Or it's gonna go check, 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 and then the turn, like Pepe bets and I fold and Henry calls, and then Henry wins the pot. But instead what happened, and this is why I wanted to highlight this play, it was really cool, is like I bet, Henry folds the best hand, and Pepe calls with the worst hand, and now on the turn, what was the turn, like a deuce? 8. Yeah, 8. So it's like a complete blank. I knew it was a blank that didn't change anything. But anyway, it's an 8, and now this card doesn't change anything. So if Pepe had some like flush draw or like some straight draw, like this card does not help him whatsoever. Like unless he had 8, like king 8 of hearts, and like, you know, fine, he beats me. But so now I have Pepe calling with the worst hand, Henry fold the best hand, and like now I'm in a good spot on the turn where my plan is basically to check behind, and if the draw misses, evaluate on the river and potentially call a bluff. And that would, again, keep his bluffs in the pot by me checking behind the turn. I also don't want to bet this turn, and like he could still have an ace. I'm not just like, you know, slam dunk here with like an underpair, like thinking that my hand is always good. But I think he could have an ace, like maybe ace queen off, like played it this way pre, or like ace jack or something, fine. But a lot of these hands are going to be draws. People like to cold call with like suited rundowns, and so flush draws are a big part of this. And so, yeah, if it goes check, check, I could kind of evaluate on the river and see what happens. So he checks. I think I have a pretty clear check here. If I had a better hand, I would probably want to bet, like for protection, like maybe like, you know, an ace or something like that. If I have an ace, I also block his aces because I have an ace in my hand, making it less likely he has an ace. So it's like a lot more advantageous for me to bet. But anyway, I check, and let's take a river.
I guess Pepe's gonna bluff. I mean, he has nothing, right? We'll see.
Check.
He does check.
Yeah, so Pepe checks this river here, and like now at this point, I'm almost like sort of wanting to bluff because I feel like it's harder for me to win. I would have to have him have like a 5-6 type of hand, or like a, you know, 10-5 suited, like basically a hand like this, like a 4-6, a 4-7, or like a 3. Maybe he has like, you know, like a random 3 or something, like 3-4, 3-5. But those are the hands I beat. But maybe he has pocket 4s, pocket 5. So there's some hands I beat here. So it's like I do have some showdown value. But like, should I turn my hand into a bluff? Like, you know, he's definitely not going to fold if he's trapping me with a flush, whatever. He might check raise bluff some of the time. And then if he has an ace, is he really going to fold here when I check the turn? Maybe. I'm kind of repping only a flush. I wasn't exactly sure how he would respond, and so I decided to check and like just kind of like hope that I win here in this spot. This isn't the best river for me, obviously, when the king comes, because a lot of his hands are like king 4, king 5, like suited, so that made a pair, and then obviously like the flush got there too, so this is not like the best river. So yeah, I'm actually kind of like in a way like good for me he didn't bet, because if he did bet, it would be much harder for me to call here, because he would have to be turning like a random hand into a bluff. So he checks and kind of makes it a little bit easier. I can just check behind. But the cool thing about this hand, though, is that, like, and this is what, like, I wanted to highlight this spot, because, like, you know, people are focused on, and we talked about the big hands. I showed you guys the all-ins, and I know people like that, and it's kind of sexy and exciting. One thing I always tell clients is, like, look, traditional like coaching is like, hey, send me 3 hands and I'll review them. And that's what people like to see. They like to see like the biggest 3 hands from their last 8-hour session. All in with ace king to queens pre, should I have done something different? All in with a set to overpair, all in with a straight flush draw. Like, you know, a lot of these big hands are like sort of play themselves. And a lot of the big hands are kind of like, you know, this is what I tell clients, like, it's kind of like if you want to get better at a sport and you're like, you know, a sports team, and you want to coach or you want to study, you don't send the coach or you don't study the 60-second highlight reel that you see on SportsCenter. That's the fucking highlight reel. Those are like the most interesting things that happened in the game. And yeah, those are interesting things when someone shoots a 3-pointer or a slam dunk, or like, you know, they throw the football like 40 yards and the guy scores a touchdown. Cool. But that's not why the game was won. The game is won because of free throws, of boxing out, of rebounding. Sports at a high level, poker at a high level are games of inches, and you need to have like all of these small pots, like 30, 40 big blinds, where, you know, instead of losing a 4K pot, you win a 4K pot. That's an 8K delta. We talked about this yesterday on the pregame show. If you do that once or twice a night, you know, 8K, 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 you know, it's 24K. Suddenly you're up 100 big blinds, you're up a buy-in or 2 buy-ins because you made 2 or 3 good decisions in spots where other people aren't. And that's the equivalent of like, you know, boxing out and rebounding the basketball, or making your free throws, or like, you know, all these things. And if you look at professionals at a high level, I mean, you can make numerous examples of this. Michael Jordan famously, like, if you watch The Last Dance, he like practices free throws for like, you know, months and months and months, so that he can go from like 70-something% to 80-something%. It's a game of inches, and that made him, you know, one of the greatest in the world, that first principle approach. And so my challenge for everyone is like, you know, people are tempted to focus on these big hands, and those are cool. But if you really want to get better, you need to focus on the game of inches. You need to focus on all the little decisions you're making that in your mind you're not even questioning. Those are the plays that you need to focus on. If you're not questioning a play, you're fucked. And that's the hand you need to focus on the most, the one that you're not questioning. If you're questioning it and you're asking a million people about it and it's like a big spot, it's probably close. And it's, you know, like you're already aware of the problem. It's when you're not aware of the problem and you're not aware of the situation that there's edge to be gained. And that's why I wanted to highlight a hand like this one. So that's kind of my speech about like, you know, if you really want to improve at poker, focus on that and run this by friends, or like, you know, find a way to figure out these spots, document your hands, and study on your own. So anyway, not the best river, but let's take a river and finish this up, see what happens.
That's going to let Alec win the pot with 6s. Henry's not going to like seeing that.
Hey, raising, I called the flop.
He's probably just as surprised as I am. As we all are.
I was playing with Gerry
Stoic, though.
the first time. First ever time.
All right, we did it. Felt good about winning this hand, especially on that river. Hope you enjoyed this analysis. For more from me, Alec Torelli on social media, Twitter and Instagram. I'm on there like every day. ConsciousPoker.com. Subscribe to our newsletter. It's totally free. Download my hand reading system. It's totally free. Get on my list. It's totally free. You get a piece of me in this game with no markup. It's totally free on Stake Kings. All that goes out to my newsletter subscribers. You guys are fucking amazing. Thanks for your love and support. Stay tuned for the show. It starts now.
Raise it up. Raise it up. Chat Pro.